All right, we got a lot to get into tonight. NATO allies are fortifying Russian border with dragon's teeth. NATO member state Lithuania has installed anti-tank concrete pyramids known as dragon's teeth before a bridge near its border with Russia, its defense ministry said on Thursday. Of course, we have the ministry said on X that the pyramids were put up opposite the Queen Louise Bridge, which connects the country to Russia's Kaliningrad region, as part of a precautionary step to ensure more effective defense. It says, quote, today Lithuania set up a blockade on and near the bridge in Panemun, linking Lithuania and Russia. The statement said the setup includes mines, hedgehogs, and of course dragon's teeth, etc. So they are literally putting mines and dragon's teeth. If you do not know what these are, again, you would have seen them in a World War II or World War I documentary. The things that are actually behind him, these 5 or 6 feet, cone pyramid things, are basically meant and placed to stop tanks. They are done in such a way that it would make vehicles much, much harder to get through. Now, of course, I don't know what they do to try to clear a way through these things. Obviously, they probably blow a huge hole in them or something. They probably use munitions to get through them. But they are very tough, of course, to get through with tanks. Now, of course, there's some other images here just to show you exactly what they are doing here now, is they're adding these. So something is on the horizon. I've been telling you guys, every NATO member, I believe almost all of the ones that are bordering Russia now have these on their border. We have covered one at a time, and I believe this is the last one. You now have almost the entire Russian border, including the enclave at Kaliningrad, which is separate from main Russia, now blocked with dragon's teeth. And people don't think that something is about to happen. Again, he even said that there are mines at these passages. So I guess we'll see what ends up happening. We'll be back with all sorts of other current events that are going on, and we'll show you all of the stuff that relates to this right now that is happening in NATO. We'll be back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, Juby Joe, what in the heck? Thank you so much, Juby Joe. Thank you for the super chat. First thing in the show. I appreciate you, Juby. Thank you for being at every show as well. I appreciate everybody that just made it into the chat, including Tracy Q. We've got Crystal Watkins, Inquiring Minds. We've got Hot Pocket, one of my favorite screen names there. 308 Slaghammer. We've got Jonathan Floming, Bobby Sue, Truth Iris, Colby Wilson, and CJ 1975. By the way, only reason that Hot Pocket is one of my favorite screen names is it reminds me of when I was, it reminded me when I was young and could literally eat anything and everything and not die. But yeah, I used to love Hot Pockets when I was, of course, eating anything and everything, including Monster energy drinks and Red Bull that, of course, now would basically dissolve my innards. So yeah, and I think that's actually why I have all of the kind of Crohn's and the intestinal stuff that I do is because I drank a lot of that. I've been telling my daughter, even if she has a long shift at work or something, do not drink that stuff. but just my personal opinion there. All right, and then we've got Lady L. I'm crazy to think that. What is happening? We've got Backwoods Law. Says, LOL, you're still a baby, Marv. Well, I'm getting up there now. Crystal Wattens, Wharton Fissel, James McGowan, Rhonda, again, thank you. White Roses, Lisa Douglas, thank you for all of the mods. I see Bobby Sue. I don't know if we've got Ilea yet. Thank you so much. Smoking Swamp Outdoors, Briar Pitch. Of course, we've got Chance and Jammer. Of course, thank you, April, if you're here. I don't know if you are. And then Varya, Beans and Frank, Kathy Piana. Don't drink, I said personally, don't drink energy drinks in general. I won't say a specific one, but almost all of them. It's kind of the equivalent if, like also if you drank beer, if you ever drank like 211 or, OE 800 or something. Those things are just absolutely disgusting. All right, Ilea is here. Hey, Ilea, nice to see you. All right, let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugle fam. I'm doing just fine.
Callie, thank you so much as well. Thank you for the super, and Polar Bear, T. Oliver, and everybody else. Let's get back into it. So, Dex, what did you think when you first saw that, of course, Lithuania, we've covered pretty much all of the NATO countries are now dragon's teethed up, which somebody asked, by the way, those are made of concrete. What do you think about that?
Exactly. I think we first reported one of the very first ones a while back was Poland, and they continue to add and more of these, whether it be other Baltic states or in as it was in this case, or Poland or others are adding more and more defense capabilities, and in this case, actually defensive shields right at the border. That's a telltale sign. They don't just you don't just put these out because you think something's coming in 5 years, right? They're putting this stuff out right now to protect themselves right now. And that's critical and important for us to understand.
I think an important part there too was they are actually placing mines. The mines part, I would think, is that something they can just turn off remotely, like just leave them dormant? I would think. And then where are they putting it? Are they putting them places that people do not, like the public doesn't go through? Then, if it's at the actual like border crossings and things like that, you would think that would kind of stop anybody from driving through if there were mines. Or are they just putting it in places? I mean, think about if just normal people came across, are they going to step on a mine? I know that there are some mines, and they're probably using those mines that are, have weight sensors and can only go off at a certain weight. But I don't know. That mine part really, that gets me. And then Russia vows new crackdown on U.S. media in response to RT sanctions. Now, Dex, do you want to go over this? And by the way, like for me, I thought that, originally RT, of course, a few years ago when all of this stuff started happening, it's like all of a sudden we couldn't get RT anymore on a lot of things. You didn't see it on all of the platforms. It got taken down. So, where does it go from here, and what does this mean?
Well, it sounds to me like to whatever extent Russia can actually do something in retaliation, it sounds like they're vowing to do that. But I don't know what that means outside of potentially arresting more journalists and trying them for, espionage, like they've done to the Wall Street Journal reporter, who eventually, I think we traded him out just recently. That's what came to mind when I saw this. I don't know. It's not like we have huge media assets, U.S. news assets in their country. I mean, I guess we do. We probably have reporters there, and I guess that's what I'm saying. That may be at risk, but I don't know how many of them are foreign versus being local reporters that are working for the agency. Now, they could be shutting them down, just like they started to shut down and limit access to other things. They could start shutting down media access to the news organizations that would normally cover stuff in Russia from outside. So, but obviously there is a push from his side against this response that the U.S. did by indicting the RT folks and the allegations that are coming out of this case that has been brought by the DOJ.
And of course, as far as propaganda goes, I'm sure Russia is, of course, very, very good at what they do with propaganda. But right now, there's like this huge thing that's going on with, of course, Tim Pool and all of these other characters. One thing that is crazy is that we have just as much ganda coming from our own media, and pretty much everybody here agrees with that. And that's the crazy thing. Most of our days are talking about how we don't believe what our country is saying. Now, our gov is, of course, saying, all of these things are related and bought and paid for by Russia. I'm sure Russia is meddling, but I totally and 100,000% think China is. Why aren't we seeing action on China's front? China is actually purchased and owns massive chunks of media companies, and nobody's talking about that. Like, how is that not being chatted about? There are companies that are straight up owned by China that are paying other groups of people. In fact, there's people on the other side of the aisle right now that are literally funded by, huge part by Chinese companies that are now most likely directly connected to the CCP. So I'm just surprised that hasn't popped up at all on kind of the side docket. So again, with all of this craziness happening, it's only getting crazier. And then German warships aim to secure sea lanes in the Indo-Pacific, Admiral says. Of course, a rare cruise by 2 German warships in the Indo-Pacific region will demonstrate a commitment to open navigation, the admiral in charge of the Naval Task Force said on Friday, but he declined to confirm if they would transit the contested Taiwan Strait. Quote, safe and secure sea lanes, especially from Southeast Asia as well as to Europe and America, are a prerequisite for prosperous economy for all of our countries, Rear Admiral Axel Scholz said in a speech to a reception held on a flight deck at the frigate FGS Baden-Württemberg during a port visit in South Korean city of Incheon. It says, asked later whether the task force would cross the Taiwan Strait on its way to the next stop in Manila, Scholz reports that to the Telegraph that the ship's plans would violate operational security. While the U.S. and other countries have sent warships through the narrow strait in recent weeks, it would be the German Navy's first such passage since 2002. That, of course, being when they really kind of clamped down and said, hey, we really want this to be, this is our strait and we don't need other people going through it. China claims sovereignty over democratically governed Taiwan and says its jurisdiction over the nearly 180 kilometer or 110 wide waterway that divides the two sides is part of the South China Sea. Taiwan objects to China's sovereignty claims and says only the island's people can decide their future. The general aim of this deployment is to reassert that Germany is committed to rules-based international order, but at the same time to practice and exchange ideas with partners and allies in the spirit of trusting cooperation to prevent possible conflicts. Basically, they're saying, well, they want to say that, but we're going to act like it's international waters and we're going to push it a little bit if we have to. So if they go through, we keep seeing the first. We've seen the first Japanese ship go right into the middle of a Chinese drill, fully armed, just butted right in. I mean, we're seeing the first of many of these other countries kind of pushing their way in and doing the same things that we really accept as normal from the United States. The United States Navy does this stuff on a daily basis. And of course, you guys know I've covered that one statement they always say where, we're reassuring the freedom of, travel and blah, 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 the same box sentence that they say every single time that they go into China's areas. And then China says the same thing, that this is our place, that you can't be here. It just keeps going back and forth. But where will this go once we get to an actual war status? So, yeah. And then before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. If you want your car protected, if you want to be able to get home to your family or get out to bug out, this is a device that can protect it from not only EMP strikes, but also a CME or coronal mass ejection, a Carrington-level event from the sun. This device will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second. Again, and then it could protect your device or your truck, motorcycle, boat, RVs, motorhomes, generators, gas, and even solar in the case of the Flex Energy 1500 or the Energy Flex Tactical. Both of those it has a specific device for, and you can even protect your home. It's extremely, extremely easy to put into your car. It takes about 10 minutes. If you are somebody who is not able to open a hood, it might take 11. Again, you don't need a mechanic to do this. You just need to do 3 wires, red to red on your battery, black to black on your battery, and green to ground, and then bolt it into the side of your chassis, and you will be good. Go to marfuglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use that code MARF. Same company outfits DHS, again, agencies like DOD, and then, of course, Dempso Team. And now they are, of course, going to be working with Energy as well, working on future projects as well. So make sure to go check it out. Again, marfuglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. Dex, let's go over the exclusive USC's increasing risk of Russian sabotage of underwater sea cables by secretive military unit.
Well, they keep telling us about this risk, and I think it is, it is a valid risk. As much as we've seen everything from the recent anchor drags that have gone over pipelines, or anchor drags, especially in Taiwan, that have claimed internet cables and communication cables, but they're saying that the U.S. has detected an increased Russian military activity around the key undersea cables and believes Russia may now be more likely to carry out a potential sabotage operation aimed at disabling a critical piece of the world's communication infrastructure. Of course, this is coming from 2 officials who told quote-unquote CNN, who always has the exclusive inside information when it's coming from government officials, of course, right? But nonetheless, we should still think about this as it relates to what's going on, because this is very likely a scenario and probably one of the first things that will happen when this, if they kick off or escalate. One of the first things they would do would be to cut communications. So Russia has put increasing emphasis on building up a dedicated military unit, which deploys a formidable fleet of surface ships, submarines, and naval drones, according to one of the officials. The unit, the General Staff Main Directorate of the Deep Sea Research, is known by its Russian acronym GUGI, G-U-G-I. So, that's what they're telling us. At least it's coming from inside government sources from the U.S. side telling CNN, and there's a lot more, but we've talked about this quite a bit. And I think the main thing is, we need to be prepared for losing communication, and what that would mean if we dropped communication between, say, the U.S. and Europe, or parts of Europe lost communication with each other because of this, easy access to cutting these lines.
And okay, so say even if you're not worried about what is being said here as an actuality, think about this. Again, this is a CNN exclusive, right? Every exclusive I point out, if it's a CNN exclusive, it's because they're very close. They're the first ones that are invited into the White House. They're very close, if you know what I mean. Many people, of course, have accused them of basically being, the straight up stringed puppet, but you can be the judge for that yourself. As far as this exclusive, though, so say if you're on the other side, you don't believe anything they're saying, well, understand that CNN is putting this out, and they're putting it out for a reason. So say this wasn't true, and over on the other side of the sea, it's completely just, put out there. It's made up. They're essentially putting Russia out there and saying that they are now dedicating all of this manpower and all of these naval ships to this kind of unit that could take out our underwater sea cables. Some would look at that as a possible setup that if our underwater sea cables do go out, we lose our internet comms if we have of course, something like a EMP attack, or our power gets hacked or something. And then all of a sudden our underwater sea cable communications to Europe get cut. All of these things happen. They, of course, can say, well, remember we told you this. Or if this is the truth, and of course Russia is doing this, then just as equally, they have said 1,000,000 times that the U.S. is who they find responsible, directly responsible, even more so than NATO, for what is happening in Ukraine. They also blame us here in the U.S. for what is happening in their own country, with now troops on their own soil, on their home soil, now somewhat invading back. They're invading, small towns in Russia right now. So what is about to happen? Again, I would go with your gut on this one, but I would be prepared for either of these actualities and be prepared. And then Russia built a secret trade channel with India, leaked documents show. Dex, I have called this for so freaking long here.
We didn't need leaked documents, did we? I mean, this was sort of obvious. I mean, even if it wasn't secret, we know that they've been transacting. These sanctions don't work. All it did was move all the transactions away from the U.S. dollar.
Well, and think about this, Dex. So for a couple years now, I've suspected that India may actually be on the opposite side of the U.S. If we go to war with China. And that sounds crazy because China and India are obviously they're in a fight for, I don't even know how many decades, if not hundreds of years. I don't know how far their thing goes back. I know it goes back farther than I've been alive. They have had this conflict over the Himalayas and, of course, this whole area of border where China says our border goes out to here. And then, of course, India says, well, no, our border goes past yours and it's here. So they're both claiming the same territory, and they've had these fights. They have agreed to not arm their soldiers on that border. So in the Himalayan mountains, they actually had a fight a few years ago where they were literally throwing people off of the side of the mountains. They said that 20 Indian soldiers perished, and most of them from either getting beat up or getting thrown off the cliff. They said it was hand-to-hand combat, and 20 Indians perished. So you can imagine what kind of bloody scene that would be. China never revealed how many people perished on their side, but it was a horrible fight. Shortly after that, all of a sudden, these mobile bases that were set up on the border, satellite photos showed that all of these like tents and mobile setups and kind of temporary setups for the soldiers on the border, all of them moved back. Now, did they almost get to war? Maybe they talked. Maybe they worked something out. I don't know. Maybe China told India, hey, I've got plans to take Taiwan. We're working with BRICS and this whole thing that you're already in. You're already part of the cooperation organization, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We're starting this new thing. We've got a new currency. You want to be on the right side of the table when this all goes down. Otherwise, we'll be going to war with you. And now we've got nukes and all of this stuff. Who knows? Maybe they said, you can have this whole area. We're going to give you this area that has been disputed for years. If we do that, are we square? And will you help us with other things? This is like my crazy theory about India, right? Now you fast forward. You see that there's this secret channel with Russia. Russia being no limits partner with, of course, China. Russia, as part of BRICS, is the R in BRICS. I is, of course, the India. You have, of course, China as part of the C there. You've got these all working together. You had India doing drills with China and Russia in the same naval drills. In fact, you had Russian ships, you had Chinese ships, and then you had Indian ships right nearby. Yet they're enemies and of course, adversaries, according to everything we know, but yet they're drilling together. Well, now there's this secret trade channel with India. Doesn't that kind of sound like the secret trade channel that's happening between Russia and North Korea and China? Could they have a secret trade channel with, of course, India? Is China working with India now? Like, I seriously think that this is completely obvious. India also bought more fuel in, I think, 1 month than they did in 6 when the whole, sanctions started. So they basically helped Russia skirt all of the sanctions. So they have been on the other side of the coin from the U.S. multiple times in the last few years since the invasion of Ukraine started. So this, to me, only kind of solidifies what I've been thinking for years, that India is going to pop up on the wrong side. And I want to point out that's not a good thing. China and India, between the two of them, have, nearly a third of the world's population, 2.8 billion people. In fact, India now has a larger population than China. So very, very, very insane that, it's not any surprise, but it's just like now we're seeing more and more pop out about this. And then Dex, Iran denies supplying missiles to Russia for war in Ukraine.
Yeah, and just a real quick update. Starliner actually landed. So you don't have to look up and worry at the moment for those who lived in that area. It did make it down. That happened about 2 minutes ago.
Great.
So So what's going on? And maybe that'll be a little saving grace for Boeing. I don't know. With everything else that went wrong, I don't know if that'll be enough to do it. But
watch they landed in like an orphanage or something. I just and it didn't hurt anybody, but it destroyed all of the orphanages. All the big toy room they had with all of the donated gifts, and that's destroyed. And it's totally
there's
Boeing.
Something.
Yeah,
there's something. Yeah, exactly. But no, technically it was White Sands base. They had it all on film. I was actually watching it a minute ago. So yeah, it did land officially on the airbags like it's supposed to. So I guess the astronauts could have made it home, presumably. But nonetheless, moving on to Iran. This is important. So what has happened here is a report had come out and on Friday that was talking about the fact that they had been supplying short-range ballistic missiles, as well as other ballistic missiles and technology to Russia for use in UKR. The JB administration had previously threatened severe responses to Tehran. Now, mind you, might remember, we still have all of our carriers in position. They were brought in for a defensive point of view to potentially retaliate against Iran if they did that strike against Israel. But we were supposed to give them a very severe response if they went through with it. Well, now, of course, that this report has come out, Iran is saying, hey, no, we haven't done any of this. We didn't supply anything to Russia, et cetera, which you would expect them to say, even if they did do it, because we know, even you look at North Korea, they don't publicize it, but we know, and they've seen and they've talked about the numbers of cargo shipments that have gone through from North Korea to Russia with armament and more so munitions in that case. But that's what's happening here. What we don't know is, this is all inside reports. I think the Wall Street Journal reporting that the missiles had gone was coming from inside reports coming from the U.S. out of intelligence groups, et cetera. And that, that's what Iran is responding to, saying, no, it didn't happen. But the real question is, are we going to do anything about it, or are we just paying lip service to this one? Or are we just going to slap an extra sanction on top of all the sanctions we've already done that don't do a thing?
Yeah, and I saw comments say, blame Iran. Now, again, most people look at all of this with Russia, Iran, China. I see an angle of this, and I don't necessarily see eye to eye with it. But I do notice that a lot of things are blamed. They place blame somewhere else, right? As far as our money, they blamed on Russia's war, right? Why it's inflation. Well, many that are kind of in the know here realize that this inflation thing isn't just all Russia. I'm sure that is a huge part of it, but it is not all of it. In fact, the companies, the corporations that are also directly tied in with our government, I mean, heck, you can, see our politicians doing Doritos commercials and holding up, pit stop shakes and saying, it's so great. I've never had a shake so good. Vote for me. Like this kind of stuff. It just shows you how corporate we truly are when our president is holding up a shake. It's straight out of idiocracy. So when you see these corporations and everything that's going on with this whole thing, it's like, it seems to me that, we always have somewhere to blame. Somewhere to blame for it without looking at ourselves. But as far as Iran goes, most of the Middle East is on their side. I don't know if it's most. I don't know what the majority is. But a lot of the Middle East is actually siding with Iran instead of Israel. And this isn't a good thing for the U.S. because the U.S. is now backing up Israel. And, of course, if things pop off over there, it's going to be our children that are going. It's going to be our men and women that are going into that war, because it will turn into a World War III very, very quickly, especially if Iran and Israel full on, do a full scale war. The U.S. is already involved in taking missiles out of the sky. It's already straight up involved in helping them with all sorts of equipment, in the same way that, they're helping Ukraine with all of their gear as well. So, like, this whole thing, I get that people look at this and say, blame this and blame that. But I do think that Iran is doing a lot of really, really scary stuff right now. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Now, before we move on, I want to quick thank you again. Thank you, Juby Joe. Thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you, Stephen McMahon. I don't know if you're going to work tonight, but we did it a little bit earlier tonight, so I'm glad you were able to make it. It says, where would Vlad get the money to mount a great buy of media people? Doesn't he have more pressing things to pay for right now? Well, here's the thing, and that seems normal. I think that China, Russia, and the U.S. probably pays off Russian influencers. There's probably journalists and this and that in every country that the U.S. has some sort of spy inserted in. And you do vice versa. Russia probably has people here. I shouldn't say probably. Russia has people here, right? There's spies all over the world. China has spies here. Some of these are in media. I guarantee it. As far as independent media, though, I feel like this is a really crazy time for all of this to go down. I think the timing cannot be overlooked. The timing of this whole situation with Tenet. Now all of the left outlets are in chorus and putting out that this is a super group that's pro T-Man, that's pro our former president, and that this is, basically paying for Russian propaganda. But what is Russian propaganda? What these people are basically spouting, their message does line up very strongly with the right side of thing. I guess when you look at the pro-Russian stuff, like Tucker Carlson going into a Russian store and shopping, somebody could look at that and go, yeah, that seems really pro-Russian. It's literally pro-Russian. He's saying, look at this, $100 in Russia, I can get all of this. You even have Putin stating that people can just straight up move there if they want to get away from the country. He put out some sort of decree. But as far as the other things that they're saying is pro-Russian, they're saying that basically all of the morals and values that, say, my family grew up with as somebody who is Christian, there's a lot of things that, people are never going to see eye to eye on. There are certain subjects that are so touchy that if you even touch it, people are just going to start fighting. They literally just start arguing. But as far as this Tenet thing, so I've noticed that everybody that has had T-Man on has been, attacked. Every podcast, even I think Theo Vaughn sat down with him, didn't he? Somebody did. I think it was him. It's like everybody who has had them on has had some sort of things. So would it be crazy to think that possibly somebody else could have done this deal? It does say that they were shown this basically fake profile of this guy that paid, this big payment or something, and that wasn't his real name. I don't think that somebody said to me that they say, Tim Pool and these guys, they're not victims. I don't think they're victims either. I think they just got a huge check. They got a giant check, and they probably, I believe, though, they just didn't look at who was writing it. I don't think they did their background. But do I think that, Tim Pool is a spy? No. Do I think he's a stand-up guy? I don't know. You look at what he used to say about, like, when he was on the left, he talked about, these rich people with their mansions and all of that. But has he not turned into that person? He constantly talks about how big his media empire is, and he's put a skate park into his house. I mean, he's literally purchased this stuff that he used to say was the epitome of just, the horrible, horrible kind of rich person. Now he is that rich person. So as far as that goes, like, yeah, there's the things like that I disagree with. But do I think that, these guys are purposely, like, given a list of stuff to say? I don't personally think so. I don't know. But would Russia do that? I actually disagree, Stephen Mann. I think that they are doing that. I believe they totally pay for, this kind of stuff to happen. They probably do make those payments. But in this case, 2 months before the day, now where are they looking at? The news and everybody that's pointing this out is saying that it's specifically on this platform, and they're saying that these all have to be watched and monitored and they have to go. That's what they're calling for. They're saying that it's interference and therefore it can be intervened in by law. Like, there's laws that might be able to come into play if this is somehow connected back to them. then they can go in and say, this is unacceptable to have on, on the internet, this and that. And that's where I think that this very well could go. And that's a very scary thing. Carol, thank you so much. And again, thank you for not only showing up to all these shows, but thank you for the support. Callie, thank you so much. Low T and the Vantage says, hello, Adam. It's David from GoPro Chicken. Love it. Low T and the Vantage is my new channel. Been with you since 2017 and still look forward to watching your show. I know, and that is very awesome. GoPro Chicken is awesome as well. And then Genius by Birth, please remember to prep for your fur babies as well if you have them. Anytime somebody says to prep for the fur babies, I think of Florida Patriot 71. Do you guys? I'm sure some of you remember, but she passed. God bless her up in heaven. All right, and then let's see here. Dex, let's talk about China's mysterious space plane.
So this is very much, at least from what little we know about it, it seems very much like our X-37B, that military space plane that we have, that does all sorts of secret missions. This is their version of it. It's been up in space for quite some time. We've talked about it before. I think when it launched, it did some interesting things. The one thing, again, because it's secret, we don't know. Of course, China says it's here to do peaceful space missions and, advanced science, blah, 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 right? But reality, what we probably know is it's very much doing things that ours is probably doing too, which is in line with their military needs and exploring and testing and doing stuff along those lines. And one of the things they assume is happening, because they were able to track some of this, is that it was doing what's called an RPO, which is a rendezvous and proximity operation with other objects. So that means it tested its capabilities to meet up with and get close to another object in space. Now, that could just be for docking, repairing, who knows? Maybe it was going to, maybe at some point it will have arms in it that come out and repair a satellite. Or maybe it has arms that come out and destroy a satellite, or maybe it can spy on or investigate other objects that are in space. We don't know, but it's been up there for quite some time. It's now made its return to Earth, which I guess a lot of things are returning to Earth, along with the Starliner today. But 268 days in orbit. It's a reusable spacecraft. Kind of looks like a miniature space shuttle, which so does our X-37B.
I did think it was odd that these both did they come back the same day? Or the Starliner, and then somebody.
I don't know if theirs came back to. It says, same day.
And it brought me back to, I just oversaw a comment that somebody said, and they said, question, could they have possibly brought back a payload in this Starliner thing? What if nothing was what it looked like, right? That the Starliner, all of this drama is actually made up. There's probably something that's going on. They're trying to, take down Boeing. Maybe so Boeing crashes so hard that it can be, file bankruptcy or something. It fails so bad that one of the other five companies, absorbs it or dissolves it, and then it just gets put into, four companies. Right? If you look at the five companies, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, you have Boeing, Dex, I'm missing it. So General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon. Those top five. You look at those, it is a crazy post. There's of course a meme, but it's an actual chart of all of the companies that used to be before they got absorbed by those bigger companies. So each one, take for example, there's these lines that come off of each one, like Boeing absorbed 25 different smaller companies that used to manufacture things. Northrop Grumman and Raytheon, it's like the lines go out and it just spreads out like a family tree. And it's like there used to be hundreds and hundreds of smaller companies that used to make this stuff. And the government had to work, with contracts with all of these different things and manufacture all over the place, all these different companies from different places. Through time, it's almost like it's been purposeful that they all got absorbed into this main thing. So I just wonder if that's what's going on with Boeing. Why would there all of a sudden be this huge reputation hit? Or could it be China? China is now building planes. They just stepped into the game in a big way. They're going to be making aircraft. Are they, part of this and they're trying to compete? I don't know. Dex, go ahead. And sabotage, you know what I mean?
In addition to those two coming down today, Elon, Falcon 9 went up today for a delivery for the National Reconnaissance Office, aka the Spy Satellite Division. So some sort of secret overhead intelligence systems, as they call themselves, innovative overhead intelligence systems for national security. So that went up today.
So, and anything involving the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, that is a agency that nobody talks about. Up until a few years ago, most of you probably didn't even know it existed. We covered a bunch of stuff that the NRO did quite a few years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. But it's like nobody even knows about the NRO. It's really not talked about. But they definitely do some really, really weird secret operations with the NRO. And then, of course, if you haven't already, go check out Jace. We were talking about it just yesterday with the antibiotics and some of the different things. Having some of the most common antibiotics on hand are good for, so many different things. But really, having antibiotics in a situation where there is no hospital, if there's no power, there's no hospitals, there's no pharmacies, having antibiotics can literally save your life. Antibiotics can, of course, change a little cut on your finger, from a funeral to a healing finger in a couple days. Something as little as a cut on your finger could get infected and, of course, turn into a disaster. So having extra antibiotics is an amazing thing, especially if you live somewhere where there's a lot of storms or a lot of hurricanes, if you have a possibility for earthquakes or fires, anything like that, where you might get cut off from people or from pharmacies or from any of that. And none of us want to think that way, but of course a lot of us preppers do. Jace is a very easy service. You can do this from your couch. You can get a telehealth appointment through your computer or your device, of course, and you can talk to a board-certified doctor, and then, of course, you can get yourself a Jace case that has all of the most common antibiotics in it. You can also go through them as well for Jace Daily. That's a 12-month supply, extended supply of all of your medications. So if you're a caregiver for somebody, this is a really great thing too. If there's a medication they take every day, there's a good chance that you might be able to get it from them. Again, I don't think they, do the crazy harder stuff, but a lot of the stuff that would be, maintenance for you to live, that kind of stuff, a lot of those they have. So go check for more info at marfooglenews.com/Jace and make sure to use the code MARF. Again, you can go get that with those antibiotics, and it does not take long. It's a very easy process, and then you'll have a backup. I've also pointed out that China basically has a monopoly on antibiotics, so if something happens with us in China, I think that is going to stop real quick, and I don't know why there's no plan, contingency plan for that. They make 97% of the APIs, the active pharmaceutical ingredients in antibiotics, and they make 93% or 95%, it might actually be 95% of all antibiotics. We don't. And then California City, hit by landslides, was at risk for decades, and the slipping may not be stoppable. So we just did a video over on Marfoogle News about this, and it's really strange. In fact, people like Dutch are actually saying that he believes he actually might have found some of the reasoning of why this is happening. There's a lot of debate in the earthquake community if this is actually related to something else. I actually I'm along those lines. I think that there's serious tectonic shifts going on underneath our feet. I think that in California, there's been a lot of seismic activity and a lot of things off of the coast with the Cascadia subduction zone that shows that the Earth is doing something funky. Not to mention some of the weirder stories of, our inner core stopping and reversing and all of these weird things. Some of the stories from, I think, China Lake, the weapons testing facility having that 7.1. There's been some very odd events. But this was just wild. And I actually pulled up some of these other pictures, and this is what I was looking for on that news show. So I will show you those images right now. This was the top-down view of one of these kind of areas that just totally sank. I'm actually going to grab another one. There's actually several videos that we did add to our website after the show was done. So you should definitely go check those out over on marfooglenews.com. This was a Hispanic poster that actually posted another view from the sky. This whole area right here, all sunken in. It's like, I think they said 80 feet or 120 feet wide in some places. So extremely, extremely large areas that were all sunken in. They minimized it. They tried to make it look like it was a very small thing. I'll show you on the Google Earth where this place is. But let me also show you, there was this one here. This was a really good one too. Oh, this is a great picture. So let me show you this. This is another one I was looking for. This is an image that totally, it's like, what the heck is going on here? So they say it is because it's 300 feet deep down that there's water in case they can't get it out. And what it is doing, I don't know if they're calling this liquefaction, but essentially that stuff is moving and they do not believe they'll be able to stop it. This is one of the richest cities or towns in California. It's got a lot of really, really nice houses. And the craziest part, I guess you would have to be rich to live there, is most all of these houses have not been insured for decades. So this is something that if your house falls in a sinkhole, it is out of your pocket in a lot of cases. If there is some sort of insurance on their houses, it's probably through some exorbitant, astronomical price through a high-risk company, which a lot of California is getting familiar with, especially since the last few years of fires. In fact, companies like State Farm have pulled out in certain areas. I believe they've pulled out a lot of areas in California, if not all, for home insurance. Dex, I'm going to pull up this other clip, but this whole thing is just really crazy.
Yeah, certainly. If you live there, mind you probably have a lot of money if you own one of these, expensive homes there, especially if you're willing to continue living there without insurance for all these years. But at the same time, like, you're having to deal with having no power, and I'm assuming you're probably going to have no water at some point. All those utilities that run in there, maybe you can get the water down below. Maybe that'll help. But you're there. It's really, got to be a difficult situation for anyone that's in there, whether you can afford it or not. And I know a lot of people can't necessarily afford the changes in California, but nonetheless, this is odd. The amount of sinking that is happening, the way everything is just sort of eroding, and it's interesting, Adam, there's reports in different areas in the past when too much groundwater was taken out of the ground because everybody needed the water so fast that it would cause, the earth to sink or cracks to form. And in this case, it's kind of the opposite. They're saying there was too much rain and got into the cracks in the areas, and there's too much water causing these lands to shift. So one way or the other, they're getting it.
And again, there's all of these are over on the website now, marfooglenews.com. A new coastline has begun to appear while the city suffers a slow-motion landslide. You see that? A new coastline has begun to appear. What if in our lifetime, everybody jokes about California, separating from the United States or basically falling off. There's memes, showing California duct tape onto the United States. And it's like, with events like this, you sort of wonder, like, will that actually happen? Baja on August 28th, the city of Baja put out their own article, and in that article, which did I send that to you to attach it to the website? Or did we not put that in?
I will find it and put it on the website.
It is in Spanish, but I think maybe I didn't send it to you because it's in Spanish, but you can just hit translate. If you do it in most browsers, it will give you the option, just translate it. Or if, I don't know, can you post, does it work like that? If you translate it, can you then post the translated version? Either way, it talks about how they believe at some point they make an image of what they think California will look like. The city of Baja and others will actually be separated from the United States because of what is happening there seismically. So there's a general pattern that has kind of been popping up, which is that California is going to have so much shift that we might actually have a new coastline in our lifetime. So we'll see, and I'll continue to cover it. I'm more concerned about Cascadia subduction zone. I'm actually concerned about San Andreas here in Washington, because after I've talked to several of these experts, like of course Chris Goldfinger, he's got his own TED talk on the subject. Now, in the last 20 years, science has completely changed on earthquakes, and certain things that used to be thought of as like, no, that's crazy, are now confirmed that one earthquake can cause another. If there's a massive 9.0 earthquake, there's almost a guarantee that it's going to cause some sort of other earthquake somewhere else. An earthquake can trigger a volcano can trigger an earthquake. And it does completely make sense if you accept the general model of what our planet is like. Then if there's plates all connected over molten lava and they're all moving around and shifting at all times, which, plate tectonics, then if one shifts, you would think on the other side that something has to as well. But nearby, if San Andreas goes off, that's a massive earthquake. The very end or top, I guess you would say, of San Andreas is at the very end of the Cascadia subduction zone, of course separated, but who knows? Maybe underneath where we can see, maybe they're more connected than we think. It does kind of look crazy because if you look at the shoreline or the map of it, it goes from Canada, it goes down, and then it kind of dips into California. And then you see San Andreas open up after, in the middle of California and go down. So I just wonder how much they are connected or how much one could trigger the other. We haven't seen in our lifetime. Only the local Native Americans here would be able to tell us from some of their folk stories of when we had the Cascadia Go 9.0 earthquake. The legend of the Thunderbird was made based on stories of that tsunami in 1700, I believe it was. And that is because whales were taken 20 miles inland. And the Native Americans have a story that basically they thought an eagle had picked it up and dropped it. Or they didn't think. They of course, came up with the legend of that because they found whales, 20 miles inland. Japan, on the other hand, they had a tsunami. They had a well-documented tsunami there. Of course, they had all of this documented in the 1700s in their history, and it's still very easily to see that our tsunami went all the way to them. Not to mention all of the trees, the soil samples, you can actually see it. I've been to Moclips and I've been to Ocean Shores. I've actually looked at the soil. You can see when this thing happened. It turned everything into a mud. It's very crazy to look at some of these cliff sides. Could almost compare them to what these slides look like. You go about 5 or 6 feet down, you can see a layer of when everything was destroyed. It's really interesting, to say the least. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, Tyler, in chat said his base commander at my base just told everyone that on base that it's looking like we're going to war, and he wants to start preparing everyone on the base for it. I know we've heard that from others too. I just thought it was good. It was good to repeat, especially since it was in chat from one of the Fugel fan members.
And I'm sorry, that was Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler. It looks like Tyler.
And you're
Watson.
Are you? And you're active duty. So you're. I don't know. You don't say anything you can't say on air, but you can always email me at adam@marfoogelnews.com, and you can always just tell me don't say this part out loud, whatever else. I will never say something. I'm not looking for a breaking story or some exclusive where I take some info and put it out that it's not supposed to be out. Anybody in chat can tell you that. Anybody that's emailed me and told me stuff, if you want me to just know it so I know it, let me know, because I would appreciate it too, because I have a family as well. But I will tell you this, you are not alone, and that's why I have no doubt in my mind we're going to have a World War III scenario. I am not even doubtful that we will have a draft. I know we'll have a draft. People push back on that. They think it's all fear. I don't think it's fear-based with us. If you're in this show, you're here for a reason because you want to know. This is a voluntary show. You don't have to be here if you don't want to. But what you will see is there's a lot of active and retired military in our chat. There's a lot of active, and we actually have a lot more active duty right now than we've ever had before. Even when we had our Discord and our military group, which was wrongfully taken down, we never posted a single thing on there. We just had a space for people to congregate. That was before the last 4 years ago, before, that November. But with that, even then, we did not have as many active. And I don't know if it's because you, the soldiers, are actually going and telling other soldiers about it. We've had people even, watch on base. I appreciate you guys. You guys know, if you go back to my Twitter, nobody really pays attention to those posts, and I'm very surprised. But I post anyways. I wrote a long letter the other day about vets in general, how they're not treated well, just sad about the whole thing. On the other hand, right now, all of the active duty folks are saying the same thing. And the few that aren't are basically stating that they are not, either that they're just new, out of base camp, or out of training, or they haven't been deployed yet. Anyone that's been deployed to the Middle East so far, or Europe, everybody that's come back or that has done their thing or that is currently over there has said that they believe a war is happening. I've seen somebody go from saying there will be no war, I would know, I'm active duty, to all of a sudden telling their family to prepare. You are one of many. And I am so not afraid of telling people anymore. I was always, worried about what people would think of me if I said, World War III is about to happen. People give you a lot of crap for it. But at this point, I think it's better that people end up getting prepared. Don't treat it like the end of the world. Treat it as a unexpected war that is going to happen, that most likely, there might be effects here in the U.S. If you're in Australia, if you're in Europe, if you're in any of these places, you should have kind of a prep plan with your family. Have a place to meet, a backup place, and even a fourth backup place that doesn't use the roads or freeways or things like that. I did promise you I'd show you Rancho Verde here, so I will show you that here. Let's go to America. Let's double tap this, just because I said I would show you, so let me show you here. Let's see here. So let's find Los Angeles, and then let's go down. It's almost closer to Long Beach. Let's see. Here it is right here. So it is a coastal town. People in Portuguese Bend, they were also posting about this. So from satellite view, this whole thing has just giant cracks through it. So again, go check it out on the website. We have links for everything there. You can find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we have shown you here today. Stephen McMahon, thank you again. Appreciate that support. Saying, might be a good thing if they start draft because you youngsters will freak out and demand peace. You youngsters. Well, I'm out of draft age, luckily. But again, who knows? They might start drafting 40, 50, 60-year-olds like Russia had to. You never know. And then Stephen Mann says, I'm not saying Vlad wouldn't do it if he had discretionary money, but now. See, I also think that they've been preparing for a war for decades. I think they might have more money than we think. I also think that all of these other allies of theirs are helping them. So, but who knows? It seems like we're the ones that are seeing the bottom of the barrel Our actual Pentagon is saying that our stockades, our stocks are basically down to the floor. Meanwhile, they're outproducing us in ammunition, especially like artillery, like 12-1. More stuff in 1 month than we produce in an entire year. Now, of course, they're in an active war right now. I would, what would happen when we get into that zone? I bet we would produce 40 times as much, but we're not there yet. And apparently, we're low on stocks. Thank you, Genius by Birth, and thank you, Juby Joe, both of you, again, and Carol. Thank you guys for being the top 3 supporters tonight. I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you. Dex, thank you for your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And all of that is over on the website. Make sure to watch that short. It is, I think, like 11 or 12 minutes or something like that. Share that out with your friends and family if you can. Be much appreciated. Thank you to your mods. Make sure to drop an M in the chat. And, of course, go over and support them. All you have to do is go to the website. You can either type in marfooglenews.com/friends or go to marfooglenews.com, go to the top, go to that third tab over, Friends. Click on it. And you'll find every single article. Robot mode. You'll find every friend over there, including all of our great creators like Jacob Israel just put out a great video over there. Of course, you have all of our mods, Bones, Chance, CJ, Optical, of course, Gem, of course, Lisa R. Hall, Rip Curl Readiness, Argel Harris, Ilea, Trinity, Red Pill, Blue Pill, Wages World, and of course, so many more awesome creators down there. Make sure to show them some love. And then at the very top, you can also go to play my video. If you have a video that you want us to play, if you got a UFO sighting, if you got a crazy convoy video, you saw somebody fighting in Walmart, whatever it is, if it's your original video, upload it to YouTube and then go to this site. You can actually put it right here and we'll be able to play it on the show. Again, you could submit video links from your channel or account, but don't do it from somebody else's. All right, thank you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.